Hello and good afternoon and welcome to Time Between Times Storytelling, episode 10. 10 episodes, 10 tales, 10 weeks. Thank you very much for sticking with me. Thank you for listening to the tales and thanks for joining me here at the Time Between Times. Today's story is a special one. It happened very close to where I am sitting right now, and the time was very close to what it is now. The time when the sun is starting to set. The sky is starting to become grey. And that time of magic happens. So forget your cares, forget your worries, forget what you are doing and sit back and lose yourself in the time between times. The 10th tale of the time between times. There's a lot of T's in that. Many years ago, people would tell tales around the fireplace. Let us do that. Let us sit back, close our eyes and relax and listen to the stories. Let us let our imagination run wild. Let us enjoy tales as they were once told. And this one is one of my favourites. It is called The Thief of Dinas Rock. Now, many years ago, there was a place called Dinas Rock. It's still there today. It's been there for thousands of years. It lies in the village of Pontneath Fechan, in the Neath Valley. And Dinas Rock is a sliding black rock that seems to stretch to the sky. If you stand underneath it and look up, it seems endless, stretching high. And there, hanging over the top like a clawed hand, is an old hawthorn tree. Now, many hundred years ago, well, 200 years ago to this very day, there stood under that tree a thief called Iago. Now, those of you who've listened to the other tales may know Iago. He was tall, he had dank black hair, wore a tricorn hat, and he talked in a voice like this. Iago and his brother had made and lost many fortunes over the years. But Iago had been chased from village to village, town to town, city to city, and found himself underneath Dinas Rock, sitting there, cold and wet, with his back against the stone. The rain thundered down, dripping from his hat, and he knew that his fortune now lay elsewhere, and that the valleys of Wales were not the place for a thief such as him. He looked around, and there, fallen from the top of the rock, was an old hawthorn stick, cut from the tree that hung high above the cliff. He used it as a walking stick, and thought there and then, now's the time to make my fortune elsewhere. And he walked all the way to London. He walked through valleys, he walked over hills, he walked through forests, past the beaches, and carried on walking all the way to London town. 2 weeks it took him, as he walked along the highways, walked along the roads, until he came to the great city of London, with its city and its buildings stretching high in the sky over the fetid water of the Thames, its streets crammed with people, and Iago walked, using the hawthorn stick as he went. He came to the centre of London, the place called Covent Garden, with all its shops and its market stalls and its bustling people. For someone from the wilds of Wales, this was truly a magnificent sight. But as he was walking, his belly hungry, his legs tired, looking for somewhere to sleep, he did not see the beggar sat in front of him. And the beggar pushed out his leg, causing Iago to trip. Oof! Iago fell to the ground, and his fury knew no bounds. He stood back up and held the stick. "Why have you tripped me like that? Why have you—" "Shh," said the beggar. Iago looked into his eyes and felt fear for the first time in a long time. For this beggar was old, but this beggar seemed wise, his white hair hanging over his face. "Hello, stranger. Come from Pontneath Fechan, have you?" "How do you know that?" "There's only one place where a stick like that would grow, upon the hawthorn tree, above Dinas rock. What? Have you been there then? Oh, yes. And you should go there too, said the beggar. So clamber up that rock. Clamber as if you're climbing to the sky itself, and there, halfway above, you will find an entrance to a cave so dark that it feels like you are stepping into the bowels of Hades. Pull yourself into the cave and make yourself way deep down. There in the cavern, you will find the sleeping knights. All 12 sleeping knights, and at their head King Arthur, King Arthos, Brynyn Arthur, all waiting to be called to help Cymru once more. In the centre of the cavern, there is a pile of treasure, so high that it almost reaches the sky. Golden cups, golden plates, golden coins uncounted. But be quiet. Take only what you need and be gone. And watch out, because as you leave the cavern, hanging over the top there is a golden bell. Do not touch that golden bell, for if you do, it will ring back and forth, and it will awaken the knights. Now is not their time. But if you do happen to have the misfortune to wake them, call out, slumber still, now is not your time. You had better be telling me the truth, said Iago. For I've walked 2 weeks to get here, and now I'm going to walk all the way back on a whim of a beggar. I am telling you the truth. Now go and become rich. A group of people passed in front of Iago and the beggar. And had they done, the beggar had now vanished. Iago was chilled to his very core, but something in his mind told him that the beggar was telling the truth. He spun around and started the long walk home. Over through towns, over hills, down through the beaches, through the forests, until once more he stood at the foot of Dinas rock once more. His hawthorn stick he leant against the rock, and he started to clamber and climb up the slippery, slimy, mossy rock. And just as the beggar had said, there towards the top was an entrance to a cave. Iago clambered inside the cave, pulled himself in, and the tunnel went deeper and deeper into the great rock of Dinas. And there, at the end of the tunnel, just like the beggar said, was the great golden bell. Iago pulled himself in and looked about him and was astounded. He stood in a great chamber, and there, laying in a circle just like they sat around their round table years gone by, were the knights of Arthur, their shields upon their chests, their swords next to their bodies, their armour, even in this, the darkest of caves, gleamed with gold and jewels. He watched carefully as their chests grew up and down, and the slow breathing of their slumber could be heard. Iago was terrified, but his black heart beat quicker still as he looked and saw the pile of gold in the centre of where the knights were, just like the beggar had said. Gold coins, gold plates, gold cups. And then Iago saw him, the Brynyn Arthur, King Arthur, his great beard green with moss, his sword, Caladvach, hard lightning as it was called, next to his side, his shield next to him. Iago stared at the great man with terror, but then slowly and quietly started to fill his pockets with gold. When he could carry no more, he looked one last time at the knights, and slowly under the bell made his way out through the tunnel and clambered down the rock. And there at the foot of the rock he picked up his stick once more and cried to the heavens, "I'm the richest man anyone's ever seen. I can buy absolutely anything." He capered and danced off to the nearest inn, where he bought drinks for everyone. In the next few weeks, he bought the greatest home in the area. He bought the finest horse anyone had seen, the finest clothes, the prettiest hat, and courted the most beautiful maidens anyone had ever seen. Iago had seen King Arthur and now lived the life of a king. But time passes, and for people who do these sort of things, money soon runs low. And this happened to Iago, for wherever he went, people would gather around him and he would spend his money like running water. But he did not care, for he always knew where there was more to find. So one night, at the time between times, he went back to Dinas Rock, and there at the foot of the hill he started to climb the rock face once more, up and further up until he came to the cavern. This time he was so excited. This time he knew that he had a never-ending store of gold. He clambered in, singing as he did, and crushed his way through the cavern, almost dancing and singing, and knowing what a night he was about to have, he leapt into the cavern. But as he did so, he forgot about the bell, and his shoulder brushed against it. It happened so quickly he could barely stop. But the bell started to shake back and forth, and Iago went to grab it. But too late. Bong went the bell. Bong! The whole rock, the whole cavern, the whole cave seemed to shake, and Iago did not know what to do. Then, to his horror, the knights all started to sit up, the dust of ages dropping from their armour. For the first time in centuries, their eyes opened, and all of them as one looked at the thief. Iago spun round. He was now surrounded by the knights. And for once, his memory failed him totally. What are the words? What are the words to send them back to sleep? I can't remember. Oh, please, Arthur King. Please, Brenin. I am not a thief. I have just come here to honour your greatness. Silently and menacingly, the knights stepped forward, rose their swords above their heads, and brought them down on the thief of Dinas Rock. Many days later, the broken and battered body of Iago the thief was found at the base of the rock, laying on his snapped hawthorn stick, with a single gold coin clutched in his hand. People talked about what became of him. People talked about what misfortune would become a man so wealthy. But only a few knew what really had happened. That he had awoken the brain in Arthur before his time, and now he had paid the ultimate price. Dinas Rock is there to this day. Its great, damp, reaching rock stretching to the sky. Atop it is the small tree, but none have dared to find the cave where the knights slumber to this day, awaiting the ring of the bell, awaiting the call of the Cymry, awaiting when they are needed once more. But do not search for their treasure, for you will pay the price that Iago once paid. And that, my friends, is the story of the thief of Dinas Rock. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the tale. If you did, please subscribe to the channel, please leave me a thumbs up, and please be kind enough to leave a comment. A nice comment is worth 1,000 words. Thank you ever so much, and I will see you next week at the time between times. Diolch yn fawr.